My name is Jessica. The night I decided to end my marriage, I was not in our city apartment or at a friend's house. I was sitting alone in the dark of our lake house, the one Eric and I once called our escape from the world. I waited there with a folder of proof in my lap and the steady hum of crickets outside the windows. The air smelled of cedar, lake water, and betrayal. We had bought this house together after our 10th anniversary. I remember the day we signed the papers. Eric had pulled me into his arms on the porch and whispered, "This will be our forever place. Our children will run through that yard. We will grow old watching sunsets on this deck." Back then I believed him. We spent summers here grilling on the porch, swimming until our skin wrinkled, telling stories by the fire. Those memories still clung to the walls like shadows. But now the house had become something else. A stage. A hiding place. A prison of secrets. I discovered the truth by accident. A single email on his laptop. He had stepped away for a phone call, and the screen pinged. The subject line froze me. "Can't wait for this weekend at the lake." At the bottom, a signature in looping letters with a heart. Lena. My first reaction was denial. Maybe it was business. Maybe it was a joke. But deep inside my chest tightened with certainty. I clicked on his calendar and saw it. Our lake house booked under his name, marked with a red star. He had planned it carefully. Not for us. For her. I could have confronted him right then. I could have demanded answers, screamed until he admitted it. But something colder entered me. I wanted more than a confession. I wanted proof. And when the moment came, I wanted him to see that I had known everything. So I started collecting. Receipts tucked into his jacket pocket. Expensive wine, boutique flowers, dinners at restaurants I had never visited. A hotel charge from a night he swore he was working late. I printed them, taped them into a folder. I screenshotted messages that flashed on his phone, brief, suggestive, impossible to ignore. Each piece went into the folder, a growing record of betrayal. And then the plan. He thought he was bringing Lena here for a weekend of secrecy. He thought the lake house was hidden. What he did not know was that I would arrive first. I drove up on Friday afternoon, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles whitened. The winding road through the pines was familiar, but it felt sinister now. When I stepped inside, the house greeted me with silence. The furniture sat exactly as we had left it, the curtains drawn, the air faintly cool. I placed my folder on the coffee table, the pages fanning out like knives. Hours passed. The lake shimmered outside, the moon casting silver across the water. Every creak of the wooden floor echoed. Memories assaulted me. Eric lifting me in his arms on the porch, me laughing as we ran into the cold lake together. Evenings with wine by the fire. My throat ached, but I held firm. Those moments were gone. Tonight there would be no laughter. Around midnight, headlights pierced the trees. Gravel crunched under tires. My pulse slowed. Not raced, slowed. Cold clarity settled over me. I moved into the corner of the living room, my hand steady on the folder. Through the glass I heard muffled voices, laughter. A woman's laugh, light and careless. The sound made my skin crawl. The front door creaked open. Eric stepped inside first, carrying bags. He looked relaxed, almost boyish, like a man arriving for a holiday. Behind him came Lena. I had only met her once, in passing at one of his company events. Back then, I had dismissed the way she looked at him as harmless. Now, watching her brush her hand against his arm as if she belonged here, I realized how blind I had been. They did not notice me at first. They set down bags, laughing about the long drive. Lena slipped off her coat, glancing around like she was inspecting a place already hers. She turned to Eric and whispered, "It is perfect. No one will ever know." And that was when I smiled, not from happiness, but from the knowledge that their secret was already dead. They thought they were alone. That belief wrapped around them like a blanket as they set their bags on the floor. Eric dropped his keys onto the counter with a careless clink, his voice soft with ease. "Told you no one would bother us here. It's just us, Lena. Just us." The words rang in my ears as I stepped from the shadowed corner. My heart hammered, but my face stayed calm, carved from stone. "Not just you," I said. The sound of my voice shattered their laughter. Lena gasped, jerking back toward the door, her hand clapping over her mouth. Eric froze in place, his shoulders stiff, his entire body locking as if struck. Slowly, his head turned toward me. Jessica. His voice cracked. What are you doing here? I did not move closer. I let the silence stretch, my folder of proof in my hand like a weapon. Funny. I was about to ask you the same thing. Lena shifted, eyes darting between us. You said. Quiet, Eric hissed at her, before pasting on a weak smile for me. Jess, this isn't what it looks like. You're overreacting. I laughed once, low and sharp. Overreacting? You brought her here. To our lake house. He spread his hands, desperate now. She just needed a place to get away. She's going through a hard time. I thought I could help her, that's all. My eyes cut to Lena. She stood rooted, her lipstick too bright against the pallor creeping over her face. So she brings overnight bags? And wine? And whispers that no one will ever know. Eric's mask faltered. His lips pressed tight, his hands lowering. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I tossed the folder onto the coffee table. Pages spilled, receipts, photos, screenshots. They fluttered across the wood like falling leaves. I've been collecting. Every charge, every lie, every message. You thought you were clever. But I've been watching. Lena took a step back, whispering. You said she didn't know. Shut up, Eric snapped, his calmness fracturing. I folded my arms. Do not tell her to shut up. You've been lying to both of us, haven't you? His jaw tightened. His eyes darted to the folder, then back to me. Jessica, please. We can talk about this at home. This is not the place. I took a step forward, my heels sharp against the wooden floor. This house is exactly the place. You promised me forever here. You carved our initials into the deck railing. You called it our sanctuary. And you brought her here? No, Eric. This is the place. He rubbed his face, sighing. It was a mistake. I got carried away. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything? I asked softly, leaning closer. She mailed you love notes. She texted about weekends. And you hid her at the one place that meant everything to us. Lena shifted again, tears brimming. I didn't know. My gaze snapped to her. Of course you knew. You sent him messages about the lake. You let him use my home as your secret hideout. Don't you dare act innocent. Eric ran his hand through his hair, pacing now, panic rising in his voice. Just stop this. You're making a scene. I let the silence stretch before replying. The scene has only just begun. For a long moment, the only sound was the tick of the old wall clock. The air felt heavy like a storm about to break. Eric's face paled as he realized he no longer held control. I leaned down, sliding one of the photos toward him across the table. The one Rachel had snapped at the hotel. Him and Lena walking hand in hand. You called me paranoid, I whispered. But the proof has been in my hands all along. Lena turned toward the door, but I spoke sharply. Do not move. You both chose this. And now you will both hear me. Eric's fists clenched at his sides, his breathing uneven. He looked at me like a man cornered. Because he was. I stood taller, my voice steady. You thought you could hide her here. But I was waiting. And this, I tapped the folder of evidence, is just the beginning. Eric's voice cracked as he tried to smooth the jagged edges of what I had just thrown on the table. This isn't fair, Jessica. You're twisting things. You always assume the worst. The paper sprawled between us told another story. Hotel receipts, boutique charges, emails with hearts signed Lena. His hands hovered over them like he wanted to sweep them away, but he knew even if he burned every sheet, the truth would not disappear. I stood still staring at him and my mind drifted back to how this folder was built. Piece by piece, lie by lie. It began with the credit card bill. Charges for dinners at restaurants I had never stepped foot in, at times when Eric swore he was stuck in meetings. I circled them with a red pen, at first unsure. Later, when patterns formed, Friday evenings, always 2 meals, always wine. I realized they weren't accidents. They were dates. Then came the florist. A boutique 3 neighborhoods away, famous for arrangements wrapped in silk ribbons. My sister Rachel mentioned she had seen Eric there on her lunch break, walking out with a bouquet of lilies. I had not received flowers in months. I remember the night I started taking screenshots. His phone buzzed on the counter while he showered. The preview showed. I cannot wait to see you by the lake. Just us. My breath caught. I snapped a photo with my own phone before the message vanished. Later, when he looked me in the eye and said he was traveling for work that weekend, I saved the screenshot to a hidden folder labeled recipes. Every small clue became an entry in my notebook. I wrote dates, times, even the way he smelled faintly of perfume when he came home. It wasn't mine. It lingered on his collar, floral and sweet, impossible to wash out completely. Rachel helped too. She sent me a photo her coworker had taken at a downtown cafe. There was Eric, leaning across the table toward Lena, his hand on hers. His wedding band was gone, the skin around his finger pale where the ring had once rested. Rachel's text that night was simple. I am so sorry, Jess. I spent hours scrolling through Lena's social media. She wasn't careful. A glass of wine with a caption, counting down to weekends by the water. A blurry shot of the lake at dusk, unmistakably from our property line. My stomach twisted, but I saved each post, printing them and sliding them into the folder. One night I followed him. I felt like a criminal tailing my own husband, gripping the wheel until my hands ached. He drove not to the office but to a boutique hotel near the river. I parked down the block and watched. At 8:37 p.m. sharp, he walked in. Minutes later, Lena appeared in a red dress, her hair tumbling down her shoulders. They greeted each other with a kiss that made me clench my teeth. My phone camera clicked again and again. Back at home, I added the photos to my growing archive. My hands shook, but my notes were steady. I wrote, 8:37 p.m. hotel lobby. Kissed upon arrival. Left together at 10:12 p.m. By then, the folder was no longer just paper. It was armor. I even consulted a lawyer, Evelyn Carter. She examined the evidence with cool eyes, her pen tapping against the desk. You already have enough for divorce, she said. Infidelity, financial misconduct. This is airtight. But I wasn't ready yet. I didn't want only paperwork. I wanted him to see me stand in the light with every lie he ever told spread before him. I wanted him to realize the woman he dismissed as paranoid had become the one holding the knife of truth. So I waited. Each week I added more pages. Gas receipts that didn't match his stories. Theater tickets charged to our card. A hotel key card I found in his pocket. By the time the lake house weekend appeared on his calendar, I was ready. Sitting there now, in the living room where Lena still hovered by the door, the folder spilling across the coffee table, I realized I had built more than evidence. I had built the end of our marriage. Eric stared at me, jaw tight, sweat beading at his temple. You've been spying on me, he hissed. I lifted my chin. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. Lena shifted uncomfortably, whispering, Eric, maybe we should stay. I cut in, my voice sharp. You'll both hear this. Eric's eyes burned with anger, but behind it was fear. He had thought the lake house would hide him. He hadn't known I'd been waiting here with the truth, ready to turn his sanctuary into his ruin. And in that moment, with the evidence spread between us, I realized the waiting was over. The folder on the coffee table was already enough to bury Eric's denials. But I knew I could not stand against him alone. He was clever, charming, practiced at twisting words. If this battle stayed only between us, he would find a way to paint me as unstable, jealous, irrational. That was why I reached out. I needed allies. People who would not only believe me but help me hold the truth steady when Eric tried to rip it from my hands. The first person I turned to was Rachel. She had been my anchor since childhood, and she was the one who had already caught glimpses of the cracks. Eric at the cafe, his hand on Lena's. I invited her to my apartment one evening. When she arrived, I set the folder in front of her without speaking. She flipped through the pages slowly, her face tightening with each turn. The receipts, the screenshots, the photos from the hotel lobby. Finally, she set the last page down and looked at me, her eyes wet but fierce. Jessica, she whispered. He does not deserve a single breath you waste on him. You've built an unshakable case. So what's your plan? Her words lit something inside me. Plan. Not questions. Not disbelief. She saw the proof and asked how I intended to use it. I want to end it, I said quietly. Not with screaming. Not with begging. I want the truth laid bare where he cannot run. Where everyone sees him for what he is. I want Lena to see it too without escape. Rachel leaned forward, gripping my hand. Then I will stand beside you. Whatever you need. The second person I trusted was Claire, my closest friend from college. She had always been sharper than me with technology. Over coffee I told her everything. At first, her jaw dropped, but soon her shock turned into determination. Send me digital copies of every file, she said. I'll back them up in 3 different drives. If he tries to delete or destroy anything, it will not matter. You'll still have everything. She helped me organize a presentation. Slides filled with dates, photos, and receipts. Clean, undeniable, chronological. She even prepared backups on a flash drive in case electronics failed. Finally, I scheduled a meeting with Evelyn Carter, a lawyer recommended by a colleague. She listened with cool patience as I laid the folder before her. She turned each page with steady hands, occasionally nodding. When she finished, she looked at me with calm certainty. This is more than enough to file for divorce, she said. Infidelity is clear. Financial misconduct too. You will walk away with security, and he will lose what he values most, his reputation. Her words steadied me. But I don't just want the papers, I admitted. I want the exposure. I want him to stand in a room and realize every mask has fallen. Her lips curved slightly. Then you need timing. Somewhere he feels untouchable, where the humiliation cuts deepest. Do you have such a place? I thought of the lake house, of how he had dared to bring Lena there. The one place that had been ours. Yes, I said firmly. I do. From that point we built the strategy. Rachel would hold physical copies of the evidence, safe from tampering. Claire would prepare the digital backups, ready to project or distribute. Evelyn would have the divorce papers drafted, ready to file the moment after exposure. I was no longer a wife left in the dark. I was a woman with an army behind her. Still, fear crept in at night. Eric was not a fool. He had always been good at slipping out of tight corners, spinning stories until people believed him. What if he tried to twist this? What if he called me paranoid in front of everyone as he had before? But each time doubt rose, I pictured Rachel's steady grip, Claire's confident nod, Evelyn's calm eyes. I was not alone anymore. The plan was set. The stage chosen. The lake house would not be his sanctuary of lies. It would be the courtroom of truth. And as the weekend approached, I felt the shift inside me. My fear did not vanish, but it transformed. It became resolve. Eric thought he would spend a weekend here with Lena, wrapped in secrecy. Instead, he would face me, with allies, with proof, with the truth he had tried so hard to bury. I whispered to myself in the quiet of my apartment, "You built this prison, Eric. Now you will live in it." Once my allies stood behind me, the plan began to take shape. Revenge, I learned, was not fire and chaos. It was patience, precision, timing. If I wanted Eric to face the truth without escape, every step had to be deliberate. We met at Rachel's kitchen table on a quiet evening. Coffee cups and papers covered the wood. Claire had her laptop open. Evelyn had her legal pad. And I spread the folder between us like blueprints for a house we were building. Except this house was not for shelter. It was for demolition. Claire tapped her keyboard, the glow of the screen lighting her face. We build a timeline. Date, time, photo, receipt. Side by side. If he tries to say one piece is out of context, the others nail him down. The whole thing becomes a chain he cannot break. Rachel added, "And you will not confront him alone. I will be there in the room. If he raises his voice, I will remind him I have copies of everything." Evelyn's pen scratched against paper. "The moment you expose him, I file the papers. He will have no chance to twist it. His humiliation becomes legal reality within hours." I listened, absorbing each word. My chest ached, but it was no longer the ache of grief. It was the ache of transformation, like iron being bent into a blade. We rehearsed scenarios. What if he denies everything? Rachel asked. Then the slideshow plays, Claire replied. Photos, screenshots, bank charges. His own handwriting on receipts. Denial will look like madness. What if he storms out? Evelyn asked. Then I follow with the papers, I said. He can run from the room, but he cannot run from what I already prepared. The plan grew more refined. Claire loaded the evidence into a digital presentation, crisp and undeniable. Rachel organized the printed copies into binders. Evelyn drafted the legal filings with dates marked and signatures ready. My role was clear. I would be calm. Not angry, not screaming. Calm is unshakable. I would present the evidence like a mirror, letting Eric see himself in every lie. The calmer I remained, the more unstable he would appear. In the days that followed, I prepared quietly. At home, Eric noticed nothing. He still walked in with his charming smile, still kissed my cheek as though his lips weren't tainted. At night he texted Lena from the bathroom, thinking I was asleep. Each vibration of his phone was another nail in the coffin he was building for himself. On Thursday evening, I visited the lake house alone. I cleaned the living room until the wood floors shone, arranged chairs so that nothing blocked the view of the coffee table. That table would become the stage for truth. I tested the projector Claire had lent me, aiming it at the blank wall. The images lit up in sequence. Sophie's texts, Eric's receipts, the hotel photos. Each slide sharper than the last. My hands trembled, but my resolve hardened with every flicker of the screen. Standing in that house, I remembered the day Eric and I first bought it. He had carried me across the threshold like in some romantic comedy. We laughed until our cheeks hurt. We had carved our initials into the wooden deck. Those memories used to make me ache with longing. Now they filled me with fury. He had turned our sanctuary into a stage for lies. But I would reclaim it. The final piece came from Evelyn. She placed the divorce papers in my hands with a firm nod. The moment you say the word, Jessica, these are ready. I carried them home, the crisp weight heavier than any ring. By Friday night, the plan was complete. Rachel and Claire would be nearby, ready to step in. Evelyn would stand by her phone, prepared to file. I would arrive early, set the stage, and wait. That night, as I packed the folder into my bag, Eric came up behind me, kissing my shoulder. "Excited for the weekend?" he murmured. I turned slowly, forcing a small smile. "More than you know." He chuckled, oblivious, and went to shower. I stared at the closed bathroom door. My reflection in the mirror sharp and unfamiliar. This was not the face of a naive wife anymore. This was the face of a woman about to end a lie. When I zipped the bag, the sound felt final, like the closing of a chapter. The next time Eric walked into that lake house, he would not be met with warmth or wine. He would be met with the truth. Undeniable, unrelenting, and mine. The morning of the weekend arrived gray and heavy, as though the sky itself knew what was coming. I packed the car in silence. The folder, the projector, the binders Rachel had assembled. Every item felt like a weapon carefully chosen. Rachel called just before I left. "You're steady?" she asked. "I am," I replied, though my pulse thudded harder than I admitted. Claire texted a thumbs-up emoji followed by, "Backup drive's ready. If anything fails, we're covered." And Evelyn messaged simply, "When you're ready, call. The papers go through the moment you say the word." I drove toward the lake house, the trees blurring past. My mind replayed the plan again and again. Calm, steady, factual. No screaming, no rage. Only the truth. That was my power. By late afternoon, I was inside the house. The sun dipped low, painting the water gold. I tested the projector again, clicking through the slides. The images glowed sharp against the wall. Receipts. Screenshots. Photos. Even the email with the heart signed Lena. Each one hit me like a blow, but I let them. Better to feel it now than falter later. I arranged the binders neatly on the coffee table, next to the divorce papers. Everything was in place. But then the first complication. The projector flickered. Once. Twice. The light sputtered, then died. The screen went black. My heart seized. I tried again, pressing buttons, checking the plug. Nothing. Claire had told me it was reliable, but electronics have a way of betraying you at the worst possible time. I forced myself to breathe. The binders were still there. The evidence was printed, solid. Even if the screen failed, I would not. Still, the loss of that visual weapon rattled me. And then came the second complication. As twilight fell, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Headlights swept across the windows. My pulse steadied, preparing for Eric and Lena. But when the door opened, I froze. It was not Eric. It was his brother, Michael. Michael stepped inside with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, glancing around casually. "Jess? What are you doing here?" I blinked, trying to mask my shock. I could ask you the same. He set the bag down. Eric said he might not make it this weekend, so he told me I could use the place. Thought I'd do some fishing. My stomach dropped. Not make it. My plan depended on him walking through this door with Lena, catching them both in the act. If he had changed his schedule, if he had told Michael to cover, everything could collapse. I forced a smile, my mind racing. That's generous of him. Michael frowned at the binders on the table. What's all this? I slid them quickly into the folder, my hands shaking. Work stuff. He nodded slowly, suspicion flickering in his eyes. You sure you're okay? I swallowed hard. Fine. Just tired. I'll head out tonight. You can have the place. I walked outside, pretending calm, but inside panic churned. If Eric had lied to Lena too, if he had cancelled and left her out of the plan, then my trap had no teeth. I needed them both here. Together. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. Doubt whispered, what if he sensed something? What if someone tipped him off? What if I waited for nothing? Then, as I debated driving home, another set of headlights appeared down the winding road. My pulse quickened. 2 silhouettes inside the car. I ducked low, heart hammering. Eric. And Lena. They hadn't cancelled. They were still coming. But Michael was inside. If he saw them together, the confrontation would splinter into chaos. My carefully laid plan risked unraveling before it began. I had minutes, maybe seconds, to decide. Should I confront them all together, letting Michael witness the wreckage? Or should I find a way to remove him before Eric and Lena stepped through the door? The car doors opened. Laughter floated through the night. Time was gone. The gravel outside crackled under Eric's tires. I froze, half crouched by my car, the cold air biting my lungs. Inside the house, Michael was still unpacking. If he saw them, my plan might detonate in a way I had not prepared for. But there was no more time. Eric's door opened. His laughter spilled into the night, followed by Lena's softer laugh. She stepped close, looping her arm through his. They walked toward the porch, carrying bags as if they were arriving for a vacation, not a crime. I stood straighter, my decision snapping into place. I would not hide. I would not run. If Michael witnessed the truth, then perhaps it was better. More witnesses, fewer excuses. I walked quickly back inside. Michael looked up from the counter, confused. Jess, where are you? Before he could finish, the front door swung open. Eric stepped in, Lena behind him. And there I was, standing in the living room, the folder of evidence in my arms, my face calm and steady. The bags dropped from Eric's hands with a thud. His eyes widened, his skin paling under the warm glow of the lamp. Jessica! Lena froze mid-step, clutching her purse like a shield. Michael's gaze darted from me to Eric to Lena. What the hell is going on? Silence pressed down like a storm. My heartbeat was steady, my breathing even. What's going on, I said clearly, is exactly what it looks like. Eric tried to laugh, the sound brittle. Jess, you've misunderstood. This isn't. I cut him off. Stop. Do not waste breath on lies. I dropped the folder onto the table, papers spilling across the wood. Receipts, photos, screenshots. I have been watching. Every charge. Every message. Every secret drive to this house. It is all here. Lena took a step back, shaking her head. You said. Quiet, Eric snapped, his mask slipping. But Michael's sharp voice cut in. She said what? Eric, what is this? Eric rubbed his face, pacing. It's nothing, just a misunderstanding. I leaned forward, my voice low and cold. A misunderstanding? You told me this house was our forever place. You told me I was paranoid when I asked questions. And yet here you are, bringing her to the very floor where we carved our initials. Michael swore under his breath, stepping closer to the table. He looked at the photos, the receipts. His jaw tightened. Eric, this is real. Eric's composure cracked. He turned to me, voice raised. So you've been spying on me? Following me? Snooping through my accounts? Yes, I said calmly. Because the truth refused to come from your mouth. I reached for the binder Rachel had prepared and flipped it open. One by one I spread the photos, Eric and Lena at the hotel. The texts with hearts. Lena at the bridal boutique, his arm around her waist. Each image landed like a hammer. Lena's face crumpled. You promised she didn't know. she whispered, backing toward the door. Eric lunged forward, grabbing the papers from the table, but Michael caught his arm. Don't, he growled. She has you cornered, brother. Do not make this worse. I pulled the final document from my bag, the divorce papers Evelyn had drafted. I laid them flat on the table, right on top of the evidence. My hand pressed them down, my voice steady as steel. You wanted to use this house as your hiding place. Tonight it becomes the courtroom. These are ready. You can deny me, you can scream at me, but you cannot erase this. You lost the right to call me your wife the moment you brought her here. The room was silent except for the clock ticking on the wall. Eric's eyes darted wildly, his breathing shallow. Jessica, please. Not like this. Not in front of Michael. Not in front of her. I straightened. Exactly like this. Michael stepped back, arms crossed, silent judgment burning in his eyes. Lena stood near the door, tears streaking her face. And Eric looked small for the first time in his life. I held the pen above the divorce papers, letting the moment stretch. Sign, I whispered, and let this end. The room trembled with tension. The papers lay on the table, the pen balanced above them. My hand did not shake. Eric's eyes, wide and frantic, followed every move. The silence was unbearable, filled only by the steady tick of the old wall clock and the shallow breaths of the three people surrounding me. Michael was the first to speak. His voice was low, sharp. Eric, she has you dead to rights. There is no talking out of this. I thought I knew my brother, but this? He shook his head, his jaw tight with disgust. Eric spun toward him. You think you know the whole story? You don't. Jessica has been. Stop. I cut him off. Do not try to make me the villain. Not tonight. Lena's whisper cracked through the tension. I did not know she had all this. Her eyes darted to the binders, the photos spread across the table. She looked suddenly fragile, her bravado shattered. You told me you were separated. You told me she would not be here. Eric's shoulders sagged. He reached for her, but she flinched back, pressing herself against the door. Do not touch me, she hissed. His mask crumbled. Lena, please listen. Her voice rose, trembling with fury. You used me. You dragged me into this circus. I am standing in her house with her proof, and you made me believe I was the one he wanted. You are pathetic. Her words cut sharper than any evidence I had gathered. Eric's face twisted, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came. Michael stepped forward, arms crossed, his presence like a wall. Brother, you are finished. You lied to your wife. You lied to her. You lied to everyone. And she, he gestured to me, has receipts for all of it. Eric turned back to me, desperation seeping into his voice. Jessica, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over. I made mistakes, but you are my wife. I kept my voice calm. No. I was your shield. I was your alibi. You never wanted a wife, you wanted a cover. The words landed. His face drained of color. Lena's tears spilled freely now. She snatched her purse from the floor, her voice breaking. You promised me a future. Instead, you made me the other woman in a house built for vows you already broke. She yanked the door open and fled into the night. Her footsteps pounded across the porch, then silence swallowed her. Eric lunged toward the door as if to chase her, but Michael blocked him with a firm arm. Let her go. You dug this grave yourself. Eric's chest heaved. He turned back to me, sweat glistening at his temples. You would really do this? You would throw away everything we built? I looked down at the divorce papers, my finger tracing the sharp edge of the page. You threw it away the moment you unlocked this door with her by your side. Michael's voice was steel. Sign them, Eric. Save what little dignity you have left. Eric's eyes darted between us. His breath came in shallow gasps. Finally, he slammed his hands against the table, rattling the evidence. I will not be humiliated like this. Not in front of you. Not in front of anyone. His defiance rang hollow. Even he seemed to hear it. I pushed the pen closer. My voice cut through the air, quiet but absolute. Then you will be remembered as a coward who refused to face the truth. The clock ticked louder. Michael's glare burned into him. The papers waited. Eric's hand twitched, hovering over the pen. His jaw clenched, his eyes wet with rage and something dangerously close to shame. For a moment I thought he might sign. Then he drew his hand back, fists curling. "No," he growled. "You cannot force me. You cannot end this on your terms." Michael stepped closer, his presence like thunder. "She already has." Eric's chest rose and fell violently, his eyes wild as he realized the trap had closed. Cliffhanger ending Part 8. Lena flees, Michael turns against Eric, and Eric refuses to sign, his desperation building toward a breaking point. The night ended in fragments. Lena gone, Michael silent with disgust, Eric pacing like a caged animal. I gathered the papers into my folder and left the lake house without another word. The air outside was sharp, almost cleansing. I drove back through the winding forest roads with headlights cutting the dark, my chest both heavy and strangely light. When dawn arrived, the world looked different. Not because the sun rose any brighter, but because the weight on my chest had shifted. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and listened to birdsong instead of excuses. For the first time in months, I was not waiting for Eric to stumble home with the smell of perfume on his shirt. My phone buzzed non-stop. Rachel called first. "I saw your message," she said, her voice a mixture of pride and anger. "You did it. Jess, you faced him head-on." Claire texted next. "Backup files are safe. Whatever he tries, the truth cannot be erased." Even Evelyn, calm and efficient, left a message. "I am filing the papers today. By next week he will be served." Their words were anchors. I was not alone. Meanwhile, Eric's world began to crumble. By noon, whispers spread through his office. Lena had not kept silent. In her fury, she called colleagues, friends, anyone who would listen. She told them about the lake house, about the folder of evidence, about the way he begged and failed. People who once admired him now recoiled. Michael called me that afternoon. His voice was steady though tinged with sorrow. "Jess, I cannot defend him anymore. He humiliated all of us. He humiliated himself. Whatever you need from me, I'll testify." The news hit Eric quickly. He showed up at my apartment that evening, pounding on the door. I did not open it. Through the wood, his voice was broken, hoarse. "Jess, please. Don't let Evelyn file those papers. We can fix this. You are my wife." I stood behind the door, my hand pressed to the lock. "Not anymore." My voice was calm, almost gentle. He cursed then, loud and raw, before silence swallowed him. Moments later, I heard his footsteps retreat down the hall. That night I slept without nightmares. I dreamed of nothing at all, and it was the most peaceful rest I had felt in years. The following day brought consequences beyond him. Our mutual friends called. Some apologized, admitting they had suspected but never told me. Others admitted they had believed Eric's lies about me being paranoid. Now they saw the truth. Their shame was their own to carry. I spent hours cleaning the apartment, removing traces of him. The closet grew emptier, the drawers lighter. Each shirt, each tie, each relic of his presence went into boxes. Not with bitterness but with resolve. The space grew mine again. Late in the afternoon, Rachel came by. She hugged me tight, whispering, "You're free now." But freedom felt unfinished. Divorce papers filed meant the legal chain was snapping, yes. His reputation collapsing meant his mask was gone, yes. Yet part of me still waited for the final closure, the one moment where he understood entirely that his power over me had ended. That evening, I sat by the window, the lake house folder still on the table. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from Evelyn. The subject line read, "Filed." I opened it, heart steady. The divorce was in motion. The end was official. But beneath the calm, I knew Eric was not finished. He had too much pride, too much vanity to let it end quietly. He would lash out, try to regain control, maybe even show up again. I whispered to myself, "Let him try. I am ready." Outside, the city lights flickered on one by one, the world moving forward. Inside, I closed the folder for the last time. The papers were filed. The ink was dry. By law, our marriage was ending. But emotionally, spiritually, I had ended it the night at the lake house, when I spread every lie across the table and watched Eric's mask crumble. He tried, of course. Pride does not vanish overnight. In the days that followed, he left messages, some pleading, some angry. One voicemail said, "We can fix this, Jess. Do not throw away everything we built. Another hissed with bitterness. You think you've won? You will regret this. I listened once, then deleted them all. His words no longer mattered. His voice no longer held power. Rachel stayed by my side through the first weeks, reminding me that healing takes time. Claire helped me scrub the apartment of every trace of him. Photos, clothes, even the heavy curtains he insisted on. We replaced them with light fabric, letting the morning sun flood in. Evelyn finalized each legal step with steady precision. Slowly, I began to breathe again. I returned to painting, brushes moving across canvas in strokes that carried both rage and release. I filled journals with words that poured from places I had buried. I walked through the park at dusk, not rushing home to a man who lied about his whereabouts. Freedom did not come in one burst. It came in layers, small, steady, undeniable. As for Eric, his downfall spread. Lena told her side to anyone who would listen, and though she was no victim in my eyes, her words carried weight. His colleagues distanced themselves. Friends who once admired him now shook their heads. His reputation dissolved faster than even I expected. One evening, months later, I returned to the lake house alone. I stood on the deck where we had carved our initials. The letters were still there, faint, weathered by years of sun and rain. I touched them once, then took out a small chisel I had brought. Slowly, deliberately, I carved a single line through them. It was not destruction. It was closure. That night, I lit a fire in the hearth. The crackle of flames filled the silence. I opened the folder one last time. Page by page, I fed the evidence to the fire. Receipts curling, photos blackening, texts burning into ash. The heat warmed my face as the lies turned to smoke and drifted out the chimney. By the time the fire died, the folder was gone. All that remained was me. Stronger, wiser, free. I drove back with the windows down, the night air rushing in. I smiled. Not the polite smile I once wore for Eric, but a real smile, sharp with victory and soft with peace. And now I speak to you, the one listening to my story. Maybe you have doubted your instincts. Maybe someone has told you that you are paranoid, that you imagine too much. Listen to me, trust yourself. Lies thrive in silence. Truth begins the moment you dare to see what is in front of you. Revenge does not always roar. Sometimes it looks like calm, like patience, like setting a table with proof and watching the liar crumble under his own weight. Sometimes it is simply walking away stronger, carrying nothing but your own name. Eric thought he could hide his mistress in the house that was meant for our forever. He thought the lake would keep his secret. But I was already inside, waiting with the truth. That night he lost his mask. And I found myself again. If my story gave you strength, do not forget to subscribe for more stories of betrayal, justice, and ultimate revenge. Because sometimes the best ending is not forgiveness. Sometimes the best ending is freedom.